And we are live. Hey, this is Chris, Infinite Realities, and I am joined by the amazing, the incredible, the awesome Kyle Starks. How are you, man?
I'm hanging in there, man. Doing the best I can.
Yeah, and are you succeeding in doing the best you can?
Probably. I mean, I don't think any of us are, but I'm succeeding in trying, and that's the most any of us can do. Maybe I don't know.
I was going to jump right in. We got you for 30 minutes, and I've got a list of stuff here that I wanted to talk to you about because you're involved in so many things that we here at the store like. I guess I'll start at the most recent. You have most recently a successfully funded Kickstarter for Old Head. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did. At the end of last year, I had a Kickstarter for Old Head, which is ostensibly about an ex. It's a tough one. It's the world's toughest pro basketball player versus Dracula. But yeah, we finished at the end of last year. I was hoping to get it out before the end of last year, but then my colorist, who's Chris Schweitzer, who's America's secret best cartoonist, and colors my work. He's brilliant. He's my best friend. Chris Schweitzer's got a lot of good stuff. But he was supposed to color. He had a family tragedy, so that pushed it back. And then I don't know if the world ended. I don't know if you heard, and that's affected it even more. So yes, it's done. I'm stoked. I can't wait to get it out. The printer hasn't even got me I'm waiting on everything. Everything's closed. So it's fantastic. The book is very good. You can pre-order it on my store, but hopefully soon. Hopefully I'm getting out soon. But it's great. It's a really good book. I'm sure it'll be with some larger publisher next year. Maybe. Who knows if publishers still exist next year? Hopefully they do. But yeah, man, I did it. It's cool. It's one of the best things I've done. I'm stoked it got succeeded as my 4th Kickstarter.
Yes.
So I've done a few of them. They've all worked out pretty well for me. This is the first one where I didn't have a 60-day turnaround. So it makes me insane. Everyone's incredibly gracious because we're all in this together, of course. But I would have loved that thing to have been sent out in January. I would have loved for it to have been sent out in January. And now it's going to be sent out in, I don't even know what month it is. June? Probably June, hopefully.
Well, I gotta be honest, like reading the Kickstarter, like the conceit got me. I mean, in the description, you name drop Space Jam, and you're associated with Rick and Morty.
Sure.
When I read the Space Jam, it really was you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, it's like Space Jam with Draculas.
Yeah. So are you a Space Jam guy?
I'm too old to be I'm an NBA guy. I'm a huge NBA guy. That's more than a 30-minute conversation. I'm a huge NBA guy. Space Jam as sort of like cultural, like a beloved property. Like I was old enough to see it, and it's like Bill Murray's worst performance. It's rough, but I mean it's fun because it's basketball. But it's just a little. I'm too old to appreciate it as like a childhood remnant.
So where'd this concept for you come from then?
This is actually the second book I was going to do. The first, it would have been the second published book I did, I guess. The first book I did was a book about a pro wrestler called The Legend of Ricky Thunder, which was a webcomic. It's because I made it because my thing is always make the thing that you want to exist in the world. And it was my first book, and I was like, what would make me finish that book? I love wrestling. What if there's wrestling comics? There's more now, thankfully, than there were 7 years ago or whenever I did it. The next thing I did was I love 80s action movies. So I made Sex Castle, which has been very good for me in my career. And so in my head, I was like, well, what is the next thing that I love? And it's like, well, I love the NBA. I want to do a basketball book. There's, you don't need to know, there's no basketball in it. I don't force someone to read a game, but it's like, I love the trappings of it. And I love sort of, the trash talk and the physicality and the artistry of it. So that was the thing. It was going to be my second book. But after Sex Castle came out, it was nominated for an Eisner. It was optioned by the Russo brothers. Suddenly, a lot of people were paying attention to me. 1, 2, my wife was like, "Your only 2 books can't be called Sex Castle and Old Head," which is correct, because you're really setting a precedent for dumb names, which I've maybe continued despite trying otherwise. So I sort of had the yips about it. So I did Kill Them All instead, which was optioned by Paramount Pictures. I'm going to drop all of these because I'm very proud of myself. I did Kill Them All, which is a love letter to 90s action movies and John Woo. So it got pushed back, but this is something I wanted to do probably 5 years ago. And finally, my Rick and Morty's main series ended right as this all happened. So I've had time to do something else. I did this. It felt great to do my own thing again. no editors, full cartooning powers, writing and art, all that jazz. So it's good. It'll be out. You can pre-order it on my store. It's great. It doesn't. You can't get it anywhere. It doesn't exist. But it's great. I promise you.
Well, I'm a big fan. One thing that caught my attention in the last 2 weeks that caught me hook, line, and sinker, Karate Prom.
Yeah, Karate Prom just happened this weekend, man. So here's my. I would love to talk about Karate Prom because Karate Prom. I've been doing licensed books for a long time, and I've been working for Skybound. It's fine, but it's a lot of process. It's not what it used to be with even Old Head recently, but like Sex Castle and Kill Them All. And in the end, Rock Candy Mountain. It's like I had an idea, I just made it, and I just made it. It was my thing, and I had as much as I could. It's been a while since I've been really stoked because I've been doing it professionally for a while. Anyway, the long and short of it is that there wasn't going to be a free comic book day this year, and free comic book day is obviously like super important to the retailers, but I think more than that, it's a day that everyone's really stoked about comics. Like people are really stoked about comics. Even people who don't care about comics get stoked about comics for one day out of the year. So I thought, well, no one's getting their free comics. I'll do a 20-page free comic and just give it away or pay what you want. I'm not dumb, but you could get it for free. I mean, it's there for free, right? But I was like, I didn't want to be invested in it. So I asked my Twitter followers to propose a name, and then their likes would decide which one I did. Chris Schweitzer, who comes up a lot, suggested Karate Prom. It's tough to beat Karate Prom. So Karate Prom it was. I ended up doing 36 pages in 9 days, which is a lot of work. They're mostly like 8 to 10 panel pages. I was just super stoked about it. And I did it. I put it out Saturday. And really good responses. It's still there. It's still free to download. Pay what you want. It's a gift of mine to the comic fans. I think it's gumroad.com/STARR226. You can go to my Twitter. It's in there. But yeah, it's great. It's Karate Prom. It's about these two kids meet at a karate tournament, and there's shenanigans. And they go to prom together, and there's action. There's fights. It's great. It's one of the best things I've ever done, and I love it. Karate Prom. Who knew?
So of all the suggestions you got, was there a close second? Close
second was Wrestle Heist, which I think I also would have been pretty stoked to do. There was the ones that I remember, because there was a bunch. The ones that I remember were the ones that were more succinct. One was Ghost Precinct. Like that would have been interesting. Can I curse? Am I allowed to curse?
Go for it.
One was called Oh Shit, Vampire Dinosaurs. That's from Nick Filardi, brilliant colorist Nick Filardi. That was a good one though. Oh shit! But I just did a vampire thing, so I'm glad. One, I don't want to draw dinosaurs. That's hard. And two, I just did a vampire thing, so I'm glad Karate Prom won. But I could have gone Wrestle Heist. Maybe if things turn around and I'm not worried about starving to death, like I'll do it again next year. I won't do 36 pages. It's just like, or I'll do it farther in advance. I don't know what I'll do, but I really like doing it. The response was really great. And I had fun. Like for me, like comics are supposed to be fun. And I've said this my entire career. Like I think some places and some people take comics very seriously, but it's like, man, they're supposed to be a distraction for us. They're supposed to be entertainment and fun. And that's what I want to do. Like, that's what I want to have from comics. And that's what I want to give in comics. Like I want people to read a Kyle Starks anything and be like, well, that was fun. Like that was fun. Hopefully they laugh. Hopefully they cry. Hopefully they go through all the emotions. But that's the most important thing to me is that comics are fun. So.
Kyle, what were the formative comics for you?
You said
I'm going to do this for a living.
Well, that's a different story. I didn't start making comics until I didn't start making any comics at all, and I was just posting Rookie Thunder, aforementioned, also available on Gumroad. I was doing that like 11 years ago. But I was doing nothing before then. I worked at a comic book store from 14 to 21. But at one point I was like, I'm going to be a fine artist. I'm going to be a professional painter. That's idiotic. But it was also the 90s, which was a really bad era for comics for the most part. But I read comics. I was all about Claremont. I was about Claremont, X-Men, Alpha Flight, all that stuff. Towards the end, the stuff that now when I go, oh, I can see like really what influences me now is like Evan Dorkin's run on Bill and Ted. The Giffen stuff. I mean, all of it. As a huge comic guy, I got out of it for 10 years. I really just became a guy who hung out at bars and played a lot of darts for 10 years. And when I was about to have my second daughter, I realized this is I tell the story all the time, but I realized I would never have time to myself again, because the one child was pretty much all of it, right? Yep. I mean, you have two. So the second one's coming along, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm cashed out. So I made a list of all the things I'd like to do that before I was very selfish as a human. Like if I did it once my other kid was born, it's just me being selfish, right? And one of them was I never finished a comic. So I did it. I did it as a webcomic. I didn't advertise it. It just got found with Rookie Thunder. And the irony, of course, is like now that's all I do. I make comics for a living all the time. But I made that comic just to check off a list, and I just loved it. I loved everything about it. I've made a billion mini comics and comics, so many pages since then. But as an adult, before at that time, what really inspired me is that someone gave me a Jason comic, Jason, the Norwegian comic cartoonist, and I believe it was East Bank Gang, but it might have been The Last Musketeer. They're very simple, but the storytelling is really strong. I don't know if you guys know. I highly recommend, especially all the early stuff. Mm-hmm. But I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, I can do this," which isn't necessarily a compliment to Jason, I don't think. But I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, like this degree of storytelling, I could do." But what happened after that is that I never tried to do the way Jason did, but I looked at it and I go, "Oh, I can. This is I could do this," and so I did, and that was the beginning. And now I'm much better, and I've had many, but I'd say Jason was, if I had to pick, he's a guy who I always buy his stuff sight unseen. But two, I remember looking, going, no, I could do this. It's not, because you guys see my art. Like my art is not Jim Lee or Daniel Warren Johnson. Like like my art's not great. But I was like, what I thought then, and I still believe, is that a good comic can be great art, okay story. It can be a great story with okay art, or it could be an okay story, okay art. And I was like, I could do okay story, okay art, and maybe it'll, elevate. But like I said, my thing has always been like, can I be moderately entertaining as a baseline? Just at the end, someone goes, that was fun, yeah. And I think I've succeeded in that to date, hopefully. But yeah, so that's what started. Like, but I read everything when I was just a wee boy. I had the most basic pull list, and it changed as I got older. But when I started, it was literally it was Spider-Man, Hulk, JLA, X-Men, but this would have been Hulk when Hulk was in the Crossroads, which was terrible storytelling. Yeah. Spider-Man versus Firelord era Spider-Man, not a good era for Spider-Man. Justice League Detroit, and X-Men, which was always great. But it shows like these. Like I was reading really terrible the most popular books at their worst time, and it really influenced me, I think, to look at comics differently than just like capes. You know what I mean? Like because those are weird stories. They were always weird stories. And then later on, I was big, 8-Ball and Hate and all those things. Because I was working in the store, so we were consuming everything.
Mm-hmm. That's why you be in the store. You get to consume everything.
That was the best thing back. Like I don't think it happens as much today. In the majority, I'm generalizing, but the thing is that we had that party like Tuesday night. You order pizzas, and we all bagged the comics. And it's like, well, if you want to stop and read one, you read it. We read everything, and what was. There's good stores and there are bad stores. I don't want to get it. Obviously, I'm sure you guys want the good store. But when you go into a good store and you're like, oh, can I get Outer Darkness, which is the thing I like right now. Like, oh, I really like Outer Darkness from Skybound. Thanks, Mr. Kirkman. That's my boss. And if they're like, oh man, if you like Outer Darkness, here's that's the best stores. It's like those are the people who are actually reading comics. And I remember like when I worked in the store, if someone got like JLI, if they were like, I'm like, oh man, have you read New Warriors? Like I'm way into New Warriors right now. Like if you like this, you might like New Warriors too, because New Warriors has started. Or when like Thunderbolts happened. Do you remember when Thunderbolts #1 happened?
Oh my God, that last page reveal.
Yeah, man, it was so good. And in that store, like us in the store, like anyone who bought a comic book who didn't buy Thunderbolts #1, we're like, dude, you should get Thunderbolts #1.
Get on that.
And I know a lot of that is like there's just too much to read everything. But you can really tell. Like that's why that was the best thing about it is like, man, it wasn't working at the comic store. I think comics were generally pretty bad in the 90s. There's a few really shining, like great stuff. But it's being stoked about it. That was the best part. It's just being stoked and being like, check this out. You should check this out. You should check this out.
Well, one of my favorite pieces that you've done is, and I bought it directly from you at Heroes Con, was Rock Candy Mountain.
Sure, Rock Candy Mountain from Image. Talking about
that one right there.
my favorite boy.
Man, let me tell you, you sold it. You sold it so well. I think you used the word hobo intrigue. I think was the way you sold it to me.
It's a hobo epic, is what it is.
Yeah, that was what it was. You said hobo epic.
Yeah, Kung Fu Hobo epic.
And I bought the first 2 volumes right at your table, and it was one of those where you've been to conventions before, you're buying stuff, but that was one of those I went back to the hotel room and read it.
Yeah, that's a sign of Heroes too, of Heroes Con, is that people go back and they're like, I want to read what I got today.
Yeah,
that's why I love that show, like because that's a comic book show, and you want to.
Yes.
It's for it's real comic book fans, and you want to consume it. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's one of my favorite things. Heroes is always the show. It was the first show I ever did, and I learned at Heroes. It's different now because of Rick and Morty. Like I don't have to sell. I'm not hustling like I once was, you know. Right. But I always learned if I could get a couple people stoked on Friday at Heroes Con, I would have them bring people on Saturday and Sunday to buy the book from me. And that show more than any show does that.
And I was brought to your table for that. That's how it happened with me.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the origins of the hobo epic?
Yeah, man.
And that by totally selfishly because I like it so much.
Yeah, I'm objective about everything, and I could rank my books. I do think Rock Candy Mountain is like 1A. I think it's really one of my best books. I'm going to seg. My biggest regret is that I broke it into 2 trades because it's really one story. Mm-hmm. I will forever regret. I email Image about once a year to see if we can do like a hardcover collection, and they're like no one bought it the first time, which is fair. Rock Candy Mountain is, as I said before, I love action movies. My first book was about 80s action movies. My second book was about 90s action movies. I realized that I was kind of not paying attention to action movies from any place else. So I was like, I'm going to check out like classic, like Kung Fu movies, like classic Asian cinema. And I watched a bunch. And I kind of watched like 5 or 6. And I was like, like this thing they don't do in American cinema. And I'm really interested in it. It's like they tell their stories in just a different, what's the word I'm looking for? Like arrangement, like the order of the way the story happens is different. And it turns out these movies are called wuxia. They were called wuxia films. So someone will be like, he's saying it wrong. I probably am. Their journey, they're always these sort of journey Kung Fu movies, and like Crouching Dragon is a good example of it, is where they're going from point A to point B, and there's something kind of magical, but no one ever really cares. Like they fight on top of trees, or maybe there's a talking dog at one point, but no one cares, right? It's like we're going from point A to point B, and we have this journey, and stuff happens along the way, which is kind of an action movie, but it's always a journey. And I was thinking, like, man, I'd love to like sort of Americanize this type of story. So I said, well, what is like sort of the ultimate American journey? Like what? And I thought about it. It's like, oh, it's riding the rails. It's because you're going from one side of the country to the other side, and all these interesting things can happen. And maybe you can put a little magic in there. In my case, it's the literal devil is chasing the protagonist. I also thought, like, where would you end up going? Rock Candy Mountain, Big Rock Candy Mountain's a famous, Americana folk song. I thought everybody knew, but they don't.
Really?
It's super good. Yeah. Because the first issue, I was telling people, they're like, oh, what are you working on? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this hobo book. It's called Rock Candy Mountain. Get it? And they're like, man, we don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, what? Like Big Rock Candy Mountain, the song. And they're like, no, we have no. And I'm like, what the hell? Didn't see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, I guess, because that's nice. I've known it forever. I thought it was just something everyone, like, we came out of the womb.
Yeah, I grew up with that song.
Yeah, I thought everyone did. Apparently, it's not the case. But I thought, oh, what a perfect ending. Like that's where he's trying to get, and it's like, why is he trying to go there? And also, it has to have tons of kung fu because, of course, it does. I read a bunch of books on hobo culture. There's not very many. I became really interested with it. I think sort of I think one of the things that hurt selling that book is that when people say hobo, you automatically think of sort of like, a dirty old guy with a can of beans and, a tourniquet, a bindle. And it's like, that's not at all, man. Like those dudes were like ex-vets, like they were itinerant workers. Like they were just trying to make a living. They were off the grid, just doing their thing because they couldn't work in a grocery store. Like they were at war for however many years. They're almost all veterans or criminals. I was like, this is fast. Like it's fascinating, and unfortunately, it's an era where that wasn't very well documented. There's not very many books. If I haven't read all the big ones, when I started to read the next one, they were repeating. They were basically repeating information. So I've of course forgotten all of that. That was like 4 years ago. So I remember very little bit. I really fell in love with hobo culture. I really love action movies, and that's all I've done really. Besides Rick and Morty, is done action books, which is all at this point in my life. It's really all I want to do. Karate Prom, Assassination. They're just fight books because I love that. That's what I love. That's like I said, you make the thing you want to exist in the world. So yeah, I mean, Rocky Man, you guys should all order it. Make sure you get both copies. You get it from my store. It's really good. Ask your LCS. You guys got copies, right? Probably.
Oh yeah, that's the standard here.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
The joy of having a comic shop is you get to impart your taste on other people, sir.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Rocky Mountain is a stalwart selection.
That's what I'm talking about. I appreciate it because I love, man. Like Sex Castle made my career, and I love it. I would never change anything in it, so it will always hold that top position until they make a movie of something that makes me very wealthy.
Right.
And then even then, maybe not. Sex Castle is perfect, but Rocky Mountain is 1A. And you know what? It's funny. I always like. There's one thing I wouldn't change, but I wish. There's a bit where sort of one of the two characters come back together after having been estranged, and I wish it would have landed better. I've always said this. I've always said I wish that one bit landed better. But I recently reread it. I reread Rocky Mountain. I can't remember why I reread it. I think I just did. And I was like, you know what? No, I did pretty good. So it's stuck there in 1A also until again something makes me filthy rich, which hasn't happened yet, but we're trying. God bless it.
Well, Christian Hector Herrera says, Rock Candy was the first comic I read from you, and it made me an instant fan. Everyone should read it.
Oh, thanks.
What's the weirdest thing you learned about hobo culture, that if you can remember any of it? I know you said you did a lot of research.
Let me think. The weirdest thing here's the weirdest thing. It's actually in the book. There's two things. Well, more than that. Maybe nothing weird. I don't think anything weird, but like things that I was like, whoa. One is that dudes legit would, if the track got hit by lightning, would get electrocuted. That's one. That's crazy because it seems like if you think about it, of course. Two, which is messed up. This isn't weird, but this is messed up. Is that especially when it's very hot? Is that the hobos would like climb into an ice car, which would only have which is to say a cart that would be filled with ice from above, and it was not super unusual for them to get locked in there or to get it's bad.
That's dark.
Mostly what I learned is like being a hobo. You had to be super brave because that was a period of time where if you were found on someone else's property, they could do whatever they want, which is still kind of the case. But like hobos were garbage humans. So you could do whatever you wanted. Those guys were mean to hobos. And it was a rough life on top of that, just jumping on and off those cars. Everything about it was dangerous. Hobos were renowned for missing limbs because it was such a dangerous thing to do. Yeah. Everything about it was just super interesting. But I think like the thing that I honestly found most interesting about it is how honorable it was as sort of a life choice to go and like, I'm going to work in an orchard for 3 months. And then I'm going to go dig ditches for 3 months. And we're going to ride back and forth. Everyone's sort of looking out for each other or not looking out for each other, depending on what kind of hobo you were. But I mean, mostly like them against the police, the local police, and the train folk. It's really interesting. I feel like I got a bunch of it in there. A lot of hobo stuff, but I didn't want to. My thing is, it's just like old head. I love basketball, but I'm not going to force you to watch a game, and nor do I want to write the history of hobos. So it's you pepper it for flavor, right? Like you put it in there. The most interesting things, like you try to think like, how can this make the story better and fuller, and not me being like, hey, hey guys, sit down. Let me tell you about hobos. Because I think I got it in. But I think, the most important thing to me, I thought is like, man, hobos should be looked at differently in history. Probably if we had better healthcare back then too, they wouldn't have been riding the rails. They'd be like,
right.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
Doug Gross asks, what real NBA team, any era, does Kyle think would make for the best action comic, and why is it the 80s Detroit Pistons?
Here's the thing. The Bad Boys is a good call, but the problem with that is that they are the most unlikable group of humans that have ever played basketball. So I will go with the mid-90s Knicks because one, I love them. Two, like just Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley alone, like you're ready to go. That team has everything. They're very cerebral. But you know what? If you were giving me like, we're going to do a battle, like a war comic, and each faction is sort of like, a team from a certain era, like the Bad Boys would be in there and they would absolutely be the villains. They'd absolutely be the villains. I don't think there's a more villainous team besides maybe I don't know, modern Rockets because James Harden's the worst.
Well, Doug agrees. He types in, they
Yeah,
were horrible humans.
Oh, they were the worst. They were the worst. Even when like John Sally is like, I don't know. Again, I don't want to don't start me on this. It's a hill no one wants. We're for comics. But John Sally is like a great guy. He was on that team. I think there's some good guys on there. But boy, they all bought in. They all bought in. Like, let's just destroy everybody. And they were not. And Isaiah Thomas is again a Knicks guy. He's the worst ever. All right.
Well, you said that Rock Candy Mountain is your 1A. What's your 1B?
1B. You know what? I'm gonna say I'm really proud of Karate Prom. It really felt like I was making the thing again. Go to my Twitter. I'm at the Kyle Starks. I have a pinned link. You can go to Gumroad and get it for free or pay what you want. But if not that, which is a 36-page thing I just did, I think Mars Attacks is probably my 1B, honestly, which is good. Which is again, if you don't like Mars Attacks, if you don't like hobos, you should read my hobo comic. If you don't like Mars Attacks, you should still read my Mars Attacks book. I made it with Chris Weitzer, who again is my best friend. I think he's America's best secret cartoonist. And we made a book about dealing with your dad in the apocalypse. And I'm real proud of it. I really it's so good, man. I'm real proud of that book. I'm real proud of Karate Prom. Those two are right there. Old Head's right there. I feel like Old Head's a lot about being a dad. It's a lot about toxic masculinity. Like that's my thing. Is like, what's it about? It's about a basketball player fighting Dracula. But to me, it's like, oh, well, it's about being a dad and it's about toxic masculinity. What's Mars Attacks about? Is it about dumb asshole aliens? Of course. But to me, it's about I have problems with my dad, and I think most people do. And it's about how you deal with that at the end of the world, which is, of course, the worst time to deal with that. Mars Attacks is really good. No one read it. No one read any of these books.
That Mars Attacks run was fantastic. If you haven't, y'all, it's great. Matt Miller asks, any fun editorial notes / edicts from your Rick and Morty run?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I would say probably from editorial, no. I worked with Ari and Sarah Gatos, and they were great editors. They were some of the best editors I've ever dealt with. In fact, I'd say as a rural, Oni had the majority of my favorite editors. I've been lucky. I've not really worked with any bad editors. The editors, no, not really. But there's all sorts of curious things from the license holder. For example, I couldn't say pretty much any catchphrase that involved balls. They're like, you can't say that. I'm like, it's literally from the comic. It's literally from the comic book. You can't have real. This is pretty much across the board. But I can point a laser gun at whomever I want. But you cannot point a shotgun at anybody in that comic. You can't point really truly. You can't point real guns, but you can point like a defenestrator ray at anyone you want. Nobody cares. Probably the best, like, what the heck's up with that story from Rick and Morty is when I first started doing it, I wanted to do Interdimensional Cable, which is an anthology thing they do on the show where they sort of reference a bunch of things from the show. It's random. Sure. Anyway, I thought I wanted to do the Zorpazorp Field, which is from the show. It's a character from the show. He's Garfield from the planet Zorpazorp Field, which means he has his little arms, right? And one of my very dearest friends is Andy Hirsch, who does a lot of great science books for First Second. I highly recommend Dogs because I love dogs. He just, I think Trees or Caves just came out. He does all, they're very good. Anyway, he started his career as doing the Garfield comic for a million years. So I know I'm getting too close. So I had Andy Hirsch draw a Zorpazorp Field for this comic. It came out in the comic. It's great, right? The third most famous Jim Davis drew Garfield in a Rick and Morty comic book. It's hilarious. It came out in the comic. It came out in trade. When they went to do the hardback collection, which isn't this one, but you know, the hardback collection, right? They're like, no, we can't print Zorpazorp Field. And we have to get rid of him. We're worried about like we've already printed it twice. So we had to make a whole new 4-page story, 2-page story. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, like, what is that? I don't know. That's working on licensed comics.
Well, hey, man, we're coming up to the end of our 30 minutes. By the way, whenever you see me look down, I'm looking.
Come on, we do 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes, whatever you want, man. Whenever you see me look down, I'm looking at questions coming in from.
Let's answer questions. I'm not doing anything.
Well, listen. What can people expect next? I know you have the successfully funded Kickstarter that got held up because of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
You got Karate Prom. What can people expect next? What do we got going on now?
I got no idea. I mean, we're all, like, that's where I don't know. I'm working on stuff, man. I'm writing some stuff. I've got some stuff out. I'm waiting to hear back on. I don't know. We're gonna see. Like, that's where we're at right now. Like, it's a lot of we don't know. I wish I still had a monthly comic. I'm glad I did Rick and Morty for 4 years. You know, like I'm glad it's not Rick and Morty, even though I probably do Rick and Morty again in a heartbeat because I loved it. But I don't have a monthly. I don't know. I don't. You know, who knows? Karate Prom. I did Karate Prom for fun. I'll probably do another book. Hopefully, find a publisher. I've got some ideas for some Christmas action movies. It's out there. I got stuff. I just don't know where it's going to be or who's it going to be with. We'll see.
Well, where can people find you online? If they want to support you, what can they do to support, and where can they find you to offer this support?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at the Kyle Starks. Not the Kyle Starks. That's pretentious. Just the Kyle Starks. And I have links probably to everything. Patreon's great. I'm sure everyone's saying that who comes on here. $1 goes a long way, my dudes. Like, but also, you know what? You need that dollar. You don't have to, like, it's hard times. We get it. Everyone gets it. But $1 to your favorite Patreon dude, you'd be like, what's $1 to you? Dude, $1 a month is a bunch, because if we have 1,000 of you, then we're doing great, right? And if you go to my Twitter, you can check out Karate Prom, or if you Instagram Karate Prom. Check out, it's free. Check it out. It's fun. It's great. And we're proud of it.
I'll point out, like, you're one of our shop's favorite creators.
That's cool.
There's 3 co-owners. You're one of our favorite people. So,
All right.
you have our seal of approval, man. Like, your work is gold. Anything that you've got our support, and you've got our seal of approval on that.
Yeah, man. You know, that's like the thing with when you. I was talking to an editor today. And like the thing is that without you guys saying, like, you should check this out, you should check this out. No one's checking anything out, which is kind of a callback to what I was saying earlier. Where it's like, man, anyone saying it's like the Outer Darkness or Kaiju Max, you know, like these are the great things out there. But it's like someone's got to tell you Kaiju Max is amazing. Everyone needs validation. Everyone needs someone they trust, which is you guys. Everyone who comes into the store, it's you guys, right? You guys saying, oh, you should check out this creator, or you know, you should check out this guy, or if you haven't read Outer Darkness, I don't know why I keep saying that one. It's really good. I haven't read Volume 2 yet, so don't spoil it. I hope it's still great. It's really important for us. It's really important for us creators for someone to say. I mean, like, you know what? Jason Aaron doesn't need that, but when Jason Aaron was doing Scalped, he did need that, right? He did need something.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah. And so for the guys out here like me, and like, you know, I'll never stop saying Chris Schweitzer's name. We're doing a book together for Skybound. I should have said that earlier. It's like, man, that guy's worth everyone's time. Kaiju Max worth everyone's time. Like, these books are worth people's time. But without someone saying it, especially the store, a trusted place, like, it means a lot to me. Any store that does that for me, but you guys are great, obviously. So that's cool, man. That's cool.
We like you. We think you're great. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Starks.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's cool.